about this guru stuff and teacher stuff and certainly deity stuff, then you can just be thinking about, please, from my understanding of the teachings, because that's really what you're saying anyway. It's not like teachers and Buddhas can change your mind and make these things happen. It's more that, you're asking, you're making that aspiration that, please, may my mind change from doing these practices, from reflecting on the teachings, so it's not magic at all. It's just like a way of remembering that it is through the kindness of our teachers that we are learning the way out of suffering. So, in whatever way we're doing that, or however you hold that. So, anyway, so that's why I like to recite the extensive form measurables, because in this class on Bodhicitta, we are trying to develop this mind that really is wishing to benefit others. And with Bodhicitta, it holds not just great compassion, but it has that highest intention, which is taking responsibility to make it happen. So again, it's not magic, it's effort. So, okay. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were to abide in equanimity, free of hatred and attachment. May they abide in equanimity. I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity. Please, Guru Deity, grant me blessings to be able to do this. How wonderful. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Every now and then I have to take a breath.
It's okay. That's how it's up.
Just to point out, although we don't do it, and many places don't do it, but the chant master leads. So you follow the chant master. So if the chant master pauses, you pause, unless you think they're just taking a breath.
I could be a great chant master.
Otherwise, so you can get a
chant master being one.
If they want to pause,
All right.
you pause, so.
Keeping me on my toes.
Yeah. It's difficult in English because there isn't a beat. There's no rhythm, there's no chant. It's just, please try to pay attention. Which is not my strong suit. But what I wanted to point out is, okay, so when we say, I myself will cause them to abide in equanimity, what do we mean by that?
That we will take action to do so, whether it be thought, speech, physical action.
Body, speech, and mind, I know it.
Okay, but we're doing that for others.
Yeah.
Of course.
I will cause them to abide in equanimity. How will we do that? How can we do that? Buddhists can't do it for us. How can we do it?
If I'm not
practice.
If I don't behave like I'm superior than them, but I have,
That's how we generate equanimity. How do we help someone else abide in equanimity?
By showing them
For
compassion.
example?
By example and by teaching.
Mm.
So again, it's not that we can make someone do this. It's again that we have to first develop it, and then from our experience help others develop it. And then once you're a Buddha, then you can, even have better plans. But you still can only lead them. You can't do it for them. Okay, next verse. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have happiness and its causes. I myself will cause them to have happiness and its causes. Please, Guru Deity, grant me blessings to be able to do this. So the happiness is referring to the mind of love, unconditional love. Next. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free of suffering and its causes. May they be free of suffering and its causes. I myself will cause them to be free of suffering and its causes. Please, Guru Deity, grant me blessings to be able to do this. And finally, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never separated from happiness of higher rebirth and liberation. May they never be separated from these. I myself will cause them never to be separated from these. Please, Guru Deity, grant me blessings to be able to do this. And then we'll read the special Bodhicitta. In particular, I must achieve enlightenment quickly in order to free all the numberless kind mother sentient beings from the unimaginable oceans of samsaric suffering and causes of suffering, and lead them to peerless, full enlightenment. For this purpose, I'm going to meditate on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So that's an example of a motivation, that you do before practice. Okay, so let's settle our minds. And it's we do this so that we're coming from a place of calm. So we're trying to just let go of all the busyness of getting here and the habit of planning for later. By bringing our attention to like our bodies sitting here, the temperature in the room, our breath. And we're calling your motivation to be here. You can generate positive intention to use your time well. So I want you to think about a number line. Just picture, a line drawn across the blackboard, and how you have 0 in the center, and then an arrow pointing to the left, and an arrow pointing to the right, to indicate that there's no end to the beginning of the number line or to the end of the number line. In the same way, the Buddha taught that we have existed since beginningless time. And our existence will not cease. And so far, we've been existing in samsara, which is cyclic existence that's generated by our past actions and our delusions again and again and again. So depending on our past actions, our future is shaped. So in this life, we're a human being, or a son or a daughter, all have been children, some are parents. In each of these lives, we've had a mother. And if there's no beginning to our existence, we've had many mothers. When we reflect in this way, then we could get the idea that it's possible, if this teaching is true, that every sentient being at some point was our mother. And we have been the mother of every sentient being. So just imagine thinking about the other people that you know in this way, that they haven't always been your friends, your partners, your children, your teachers, the strangers in your life. But they've been your parents, your caregivers. So take a moment to reflect on all the activities of a caregiver, and in particular our mothers. We couldn't be alive without our mothers. If you've been a mother, you can think about all that you gave to your children, all the different ways in which you were kind. And then think, my mother did this for me. and try to generate the feeling of their kindness. Not just list all the different things that they did in order for you to still be alive, but just the immense responsibility of that. Try to appreciate that. And again, just bring your attention to your body sitting here. And just gently bring your attention back to the class and our neighbors.
Neighbors.
Um,
Too loud.
So this is how we start. We're trying to do a practice to generate bodhicitta. So we try to first just reflect on this idea of the possibility that all sentient beings have been our mother. Does anybody find that daunting?
No. I'm a little distracted by the noise out there.
Well, you'll have to practice. We all have to practice
Yeah.
with noise. So,
Just a little distracted, like you say that all the time. You're distracted.
yes, it's
I'm
hard.
starting to
isn't it?
feel like you now.
So-
like a silly meaning that you're my mom.
So this idea is to really look at the consequence to say that we've existed since beginningless time. You know? Now, it's not necessary to accept that in terms of generating compassion or great compassion, but really to accept this idea of bodhicitta, you kind of need to at least start playing with this idea in your mind, you know. So I like to think about the number line, you know, that there's, because what I think of is my mental continuum. You know, that this moment of mine is preceded by a moment of mine, which is preceded by a moment of mine, which
Me
is
too.
preceded by a moment of mine,
Yeah.
preceded by a moment of mine, preceded by a moment of mine.
Yeah.
And they go all the way back
To below zero.
to your conception.
And back to zero.
And what would be the primary cause or substantial cause for that moment of mind at the time of conception? I'm not talking to myself.
Oh,
Could you
sure
ask the
that's
question
rhetorical.
Distracted by the noise.
I can't rephrase
No,
it.
just ask it again.
Okay, so at the moment of conception, what's the substantial cause of your moment of mind at the time of conception?
You're saying like in a rebirth or like the
Any
Human
time, any conception.
okay.
Your past.
The previous moment of mind.
Right.
So, and then there's a previous moment of mind.
Okay,
Previous
another
moment
after
of
that. Okay.
So,
Continuous time of the
now,
mind.
if you're like me, there's a part of you that goes, but everything has a beginning.
And everything has an end.
Mm.
I know that too.
Maybe you're not like me at all.
You're more like me, a
But so what you
creative
have to
master.
start thinking about, I need you to quiet down,
Yeah, I do.
because we have two voices going on here. Where was I?
Moment of conception, beginningless.
Okay, so if you think there has to be a beginning,
And an
it
end.
is helpful to think about how, like if you tried to find the beginning of this cup, where is it?
Stardust, and then before that, who knows?
Why? So kind of break that down
Well, the same concept, right? So if you break the cup down
into what?
into its non-cup elements,
Into its parts.
yes,
It's interconnected.
And then all those parts, so the parts that make up the metal, the parts that make up the plastic, you know,
Had
Materials.
previous moments. I mean, yeah.
you know, before it was in this shape, it was in some other shape.
Pieces, right? Or
Yeah, but now
one
it's in
big
pieces.
mold, something like that.
But before it's even that, did it come out of nothing? No, it came out of its parts. So all the parts have parts. And all those parts have parts. And you end up back to the universe. There's just,
Okay, yeah, universe creates everything. Is that
there's
what you
no actual beginning to even a cup.
think? To even the universe?
So why do we think there's an actual beginning to us?
Microscopic stuff.
So that's what we have to, you know, kind of, you know, at least explore. You know. So what the Buddha is positing, though, that can trip us up, is the Buddha didn't say the mind was the brain or the central nervous system or the, you know, that the mind exists in the same way
The universe?
that form exists.
Okay.
It's a result of a previous cause, and it is also a cause of the next moment.
Okay.
But it is not physical.
Spiritual?
Now, I need you to settle down,
Okay.
Laura.
Universal.
It's non-physical.
Okay.
Just that simple. The
Yes.
opposite of physical. It is non-physical.
What about like the beginning of the universe? Like, how does Buddhism view
That
that?
is not the first beginning.
It's not the first,
He
That
asked
it,
for it.
there was a cause
but prior to that.
for the Big Bang.
Okay.
And Dalai Lama asked, which one? Like,
Yeah.
there were many.
You know, that it just has nothing to do.
I understand.
Yeah. So that just in the same way that there's always been physicality, there's always been consciousness. And that they are interconnected. Just like all those physical things have to come together to create an effect, you know, because like when you get it down to the cup, somebody had to think of a cup. So there was a consciousness involved in the making of this cup. It was an idea. So it's not just physical things that have to come together for something to be produced. The mind's also involved.
The
All
thoughts?
things had to be imagined once.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just read a book that was saying that everything that's here now was once imagined.
Well, certainly anything we produced,
Right.
anything that living beings produced, as opposed to the erosion of rocks or, you know.
Of stardust too, like gases, all those things. Gas
But the
in
point of
universe,
it is-
star gas.
So, like His Holiness says, that it's possible that in all the universes, in all the parallel universes, or however things actually exist, that if the law of physics is the same everywhere, then we just say it's a law of physics. Okay? If it turns out the physics don't even match, then he'd say you've got to look at karma.
Good karma, bad karma, right?
Karma, period.
Karma in general, okay.
You know? So, the jury's out, apparently, on that.
Ow.
So, anyway. But so this idea that it's not really positing that every single sentient being has been your mother. It's positing, though, that when you start going out beginningless time, that, and it means there are no minds being born, and there are no minds ending. So all the minds that exist have always existed, will always exist. And so since, except for spontaneous rebirths, you know, with uncontrolled rebirth, it involves mothers. And so...
And fathers, too.
Yeah, and fathers. They tend to talk about mothers because mothers traditionally in our world have been the caregivers. And also, you see the baby come out of the mother, you know it's hers.
But I know the father needs to make the mother pregnant for that
Yep.
to happen.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
But so they tend to just, you know, they just use this expression of the kindness of mothers because of the likelihood that it was the mother that was your primary caregiver. But it doesn't have to be, you know. But you couldn't be alive if that mother didn't exist.
Because that father didn't exist to make the mother
Yep.
pregnant. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, the mother can choose to abort you. You still would have been alive for a period of time,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. But the mother had to, you know, still exist at the time, almost to the time of birth, till the baby's viable. You know, so that we have, just by virtue of the fact that we were carried in the womb of this person, in the Buddha's time and the Tibetans, they call that kindness. They don't call it just the way it is. It's just, you know, that, you know, so I think it's important to stress that because we tend to think of kindness as something, you know, that people who, if you do something for money, for example, that it's not kindness, it's your job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Tibetans don't tend to look at things that way.
Neither do I.
You know, so, you know, they see these things, that anything that's been done for you is a kindness. You know, so just to kind of clear up that kind of difference in view. But so if you think about that, you know, so trying to get our minds around this idea that just maybe there was no beginning. That helps explain the cause and effect. Cause and effect doesn't make sense if there's a beginning.
Or if there's an end.
So you have to think about that, reflect on that. So then when you're trying to think, so basically this method is called the sevenfold cause and effect, and it's really sort of 6 causes and 1 effect to generate bodhicitta. Its basis is equanimity, so that's not even one of the 6 causes. The first step is viewing all sentient beings as having been your mother. The second step is remembering their kindnesses. The third step is wishing to repay those kindnesses. The fourth step is generating love or loving kindness to all these beings. And then the fifth step is generating great compassion. Now these steps are not really, love and compassion can often rise together. You know, they don't have to, or compassion can come first, love come second, you know, whatever. But these combined, is that 5 or 6?
6.
That's 6. Okay, so these together, when you've generated great love and great compassion, that must be 5, then that causes
Bodhicitta.
the highest intention. The result is bodhicitta. So the highest intention comes from this feeling of gratitude for the kindness of sentient beings and this knowledge that they're suffering and this knowledge that they wish to be happy. So that generates, the force of that causes you to want to do something about it. And that's that intention of becoming enlightened, to be able to do something about it. You know, and that's the result, is bodhicitta. Did I leave out a step? Does that count up right?
I didn't get everything.
Okay, so the basis is equanimity. Then the first step is recognizing or viewing all sentient beings as having been your mother. This is why often in the teachings you'll see a phrase, or in the prayers, mother sentient beings. The third step is remembering their kindnesses.
That's when I'm getting confused, because you're saying the base is equanimity. Are we considering that number 1?
No.
So the first one is
Not a step.
everybody's my mother.
Yes, the first step.
Second one, then recognizing their kindness.
Remembering their kindnesses.
Third, give it back.
Is repaying their kindness, yes. Fourth one is generating loving kindness or love.
Compassion,
And then compassion,
intention,
highest intention,
bodhicitta.
and then bodhicitta. So, this is why it's important. First of all, can you see the point of developing equanimity first?
Yeah.
What?
Because to do love and kindness for everyone, we better see. I mean, you need equanimity.
Yeah, so you have to at least be working on this idea that our labeling of people as like friends, enemies, and strangers is just a description of their relationship to us in this moment, and that it's changing. You know, that even in this one life, our friends have been strangers. Sometimes they become enemies. Sometimes our enemies become friends. You know, a lot of people, you know, that, you know, everybody in our life was a stranger at one point. You know, so it's a changeable thing. Then when you think, you know, consider this possibility that our minds are beginningless, then we've had many of these lives, and it's really if all sentient beings have been around since beginningless time. We're just, you know, like it's a bunch of atoms going, you know. Sometimes we're attracted to this group, and sometimes we're attracted to that group. So we've had many different kinds of relationships with everybody.
Sometimes we speak of equanimity, we think of interdependence. Would that also?
I think you can see the, well, no, I'm not sure interdependence is very, I mean, obviously it's all interconnected, but their kindness is interdependent. You know, that looking at them equally, they're just, you know, is removing our bias towards those who help us and those who hurt us and those whom we don't know. That's its goal, is to really understand that our labels are dependent. And those change. The causes and conditions change. So when the causes and conditions are there for someone to be our enemy, guess what? That's what they are. Now those causes and conditions come from our side. You know, that's
Not
our
from
karma.
their side?
Mm,
Not from their side?
not really.
Just ours?
Just our side. Our side does the labeling. Yeah.
So in 4 you had said generating kindnesses, generating loving kindness. And then 5th was compassion. So those seem to be synonymous to me.
Well, they're not synonymous because one is wishing beings to be happy and the other is wishing beings to be free from suffering.
Compassion is free from suffering, to be free from.
But they can arise together. And they can arise in the other order. You know.
Sorry, so generating kindness, loving kindness.
It's really the generation of love, but it's love that is free of attachment.
Okay. Thank you. That sounds key there for me.
So when you're contemplating these points, it's important to like kind of see the whole picture of these steps, see how they build on one another and how, they can be cause and effect. But to sort of practice when you're reflecting on it, meditate on one point at a time, so that you can really, because it's so important here to actually have a feeling about this arise, where you really kind of have, like with equanimity, you have this dropping away of this sense of your friends as absolutely your friends and your enemies as absolutely your enemies, but instead see them just as other beings that just, that are just interacting with you in this moment a certain way, and that it's, there's no, that's not fixed at all. And then, and it's, you kind of start with strangers, because it's really easy to see that strangers become friends and become enemies, and then friends become strangers again. We lose track of people. We move to different places. So they just become strangers again. We might not think of them as strangers because of our previous relationship with them, but if we really look at what it means to be a friend or a stranger, it's like, if you ever, like class reunions, you go and you act as if you know this person, and it's been 40 years since you've seen this person. So it's kind of absurd to think that you know this person, but we do. We think that, but it's just a habit. So in the same way we interact with our siblings, we kind of don't see them as changing beings. They're just like we left them last time, no matter how much we wish it were true. So we really want to get have this feeling of, that it really is just about us. Whatever we call them is really about us, and that's not who they are. They are not that. They're just a collection of parts and dependent arisings, and whoever they are in this moment is just dependent on whoever, whatever happened in the previous moment, and blah, blah, blah. That it's not some fixed absolute thing. And so it's helpful to work with the idea of strangers first. And then work with our friends. And then be very gradual about your enemies. Work with those that you just sort of merely annoy you. Before you start working at the ex-spouses or the boss that fired you, or, whatever. But then when you start thinking about this idea of looking at all these sentient beings as having been your mother, you just kind of contemplate, okay, if they were my mother in this life, how would I think of them differently? Or if they were my brother or my sister or my child, how would I look at them differently?
They would grow up.
Yes, they would.
So they would look
Hopefully.
different and act and sound different too, and know more than they did when they were young.
So we can get more comfortable with the fluid nature of existence. Because one of our issues, according to the Buddha, is we grasp at permanence. And that distorts our view. So then when you're thinking about, so you at least try to consider this possibility. And then you're trying to remember their kindnesses. And so this is, it's important to just not go to that, oh yeah, I know mind. I know. I know my, that someone had to change all my diapers, and if if you don't have a clue how many that is, you want to think about that.
We're out of them when they
You
grow
know?
up. Yeah.
And think about at like this day and age, it's fairly convenient, If you're using disposable diapers, they're made of some super funky something, and it's a completely different experience than changing cloth diapers. I know, So, you want to think about those things. And think about how hard it is to go to work when you're sick.
Yeah.
And think about parents having to still do what they have to do when they're sick. And how there's never, ever a vacation from being a parent.
No.
Especially for babies.
So this is what's so interesting to me about doing some of this analytical meditation. Even at the beginning when you were guiding us, and I actually finally started to have a real sense of the expansiveness of endless beginnings, right? And because what I was analyzing was the notion of reincarnation,
Right.
All right, and typically in the Western sense, there being souls. How can there be so many souls? But using the Buddhist concept, it's mind. Right?
It's just moments of mind.
Right, moments of mind. And if you're going to relate it to physical beings, well, then there's billions of insects and billions
Yeah.
of this and billions of
And
that.
bugs and animals,
so
birds,
all that
fish,
gets counted, and I
shellfish,
said,
all
oh,
those things.
okay, that makes sense.
And the animals.
But initially, like when contemplating or meditating or something like that, I actually sometimes get emotionally disturbed. So even just now, when you were talking about mothers changing diapers, and that my mother might not have changed 10,000 of my diapers over the course of my early childhood, it
Well,
struck
mine too.
me as really kind of emotionally.
It should.
Okay,
That's the point.
That's what I was
We
curious.
want
about.
to go
Okay.
there.
Okay.
We want to be really in awe that people take care of us at all. Because it's amazing. It is so amazing that it happens at all. We want to feel that. Because it's incredible.
But then the next thing that I got struck with was this feeling of guilt of not having really appreciated that.
Oh, well, yeah, go there, Ralph.
Yeah,
That's your habit.
That is my habit.
Yeah, so you have to
Okay.
go, see, guilt doesn't help.
Right.
Because all that guilt does is turn my mind towards me.
Oh.
And I am trying to appreciate
good.
other people.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Too.
So this is the way we have to work with these
Got it.
things.
Appreciate that. Thank
You so it's this kind of trying to allow ourselves to feel that gratitude. This is what generates wanting to repay the kindness. And it's not from a place of guilt. It's from gratitude.
Right.
Oh my goodness, it is amazing that someone took care of me.
Yeah,
it's,
and also because I'm being a mother of 3, when she's saying it right now, wow, I changed so many diapers. But I don't think about it like you do it happily and Do you understand me?
But
It's
you
not that
have-
I'm
Yes,
waiting.
I do.
But the point is, you need to be thinking about your mother doing
Right,
it for
right,
you.
right. But I
And not set it aside. That's the point.
no. Yes. But I mean, of course, if you present it like that, how many diapers? And I did the cloth one, so I'm like, ugh, yes. But it's not that we
Good for those
think.
with toiletry cloth.
I know you do.
Right.
And we're trying to do that. So all those little things that go on in your head, it's no big deal. I did it happily. It's a big deal, and it's amazing.
You know, once you start doing it yourself.
You know? I mean, this is the point. And part of the point is that every single sentient being has done that for you.
Mm.
You're nothing special that you've done it for someone else. That's not the point. The point is that this is how we care for each other. You know? This is the consequence of looking at what the Buddha's trying to teach. You know, that it's not to try to become sort of detached from each other and act like, you know, oh yeah, that's right, then nobody's really truly my friend or my enemy or my stranger, you know, it just all changes, you know, just like the
Over time.
revolving door or
changes.
whatever. It's about understanding
Yeah.
the consequence of that.
Mm.
And the consequence is that interdependence.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's incredibly good news. This is the capacity we have. And we don't just have it. Every mosquito has it, you know? And this is what we want to cultivate in ourselves, this understanding that people who are not displaying these traits at this moment, it's because of causes and conditions. It is not because they lack the capacity. It's what's ripening in this life and their habit energies, you know, and we want to do whatever we can to be a good condition to cultivate their positive qualities and not be a good condition for them to practice their negative ones. You know? For me, this exercise involves a lot of surrender because I resist it. You know, there's a part of me that just doesn't want to think about it. Sort of like you know, that, you know, so it's this, because it's enormous.
Ooh.
And it's just, you know, the thought of trying to keep my heart open to every sentient being all the time in that way, it just feels enormous. And so when you're sitting in meditation and thinking about this, you discover how expansive your mind is, you know, and that, oh, there's a part of you that can actually do this. Now, you might not be able to carry it for very long, you know. So as soon as you see the ant crawling around your sink, you might lose it again, you know. But it's actually doable. It's just a process.
Ah, okay.
And it's a process
The
of
ants
remembering.
Ants did that too. Yes.
When you say a mother, is it necessarily a mother as a human being? Did Ralph change my diapers? Or he maybe who he was a lion and I was a cub?
If he
Well,
was your
since it's
father,
been
he
beginningless
would.
time, it's probably all of the above.
Fathers do that. They change diapers. Not just mothers.
I'm sure my father didn't. I'm pretty sure
My
about
father
that.
did.
He
My
may have
father
changed
did.
his grandchildren.
My mother and father both took
May-
turns doing it, I remembered.
Yes,
My brother,
times
sister
have
being younger than
improved.
me when I was young too. Yeah. They would take turns.
That may
doing
have
it
turned out to be a
sometimes.
good thing. I don't know. So, so it really is important to try to stay with these thoughts. And when you find one that seems to move your heart, to really rest there, you know. Don't just rush on to the next thought about it, You know, just to keep kind of, when your mind sort of kind of gives a little breath, like, oh, you know,
Really?
oh, okay, so that you can really have this become internalized, so that it's easier for it to come to mind when you need it.
Yes, naturally, right?
And it just takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
So a way to do, there are many different things you could think about. So name some things you could think about as far as remembering the kindness.
Oh, for me, my teachers. In school, I was so inquisitive. I was voted that one who asked more questions, and the poor women kept answering and answering patiently, whatever. Yes.
And how much do we know that we just were born with?
Student, men are not patient with women. Women are patient with women. Men are patient with other men, with boys.
Sorry, what did you ask?
I asked, how much do we know that we just were born with?
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Until we reach a
So
certain
think about
age.
all the things you know. Everything you know,
Yeah.
someone taught you.
Yes.
Now, they may have taught it indirectly through a book,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And who taught you to read?
Hmm.
Who taught you to talk?
Hmm.
Who taught you to listen?
Parents, teachers, gurus.
You know, I mean, it's like phenomenal, all the different things that we rely on others for help with. You know? And so, like, what happens when someone is neglected? Look at this family of kids that's, you know, in California that's being rescued. So what are some of the things they've said about them? Anybody aware of that story?
I try not to watch the news.
So they're like 13 children?
Yes, 12,
How old are they?
They range
29 to 2.
29 to 2. None of them look like adults. That's how neglected they've
But
been.
29's an adult, but 2 is not.
So they didn't reach the height of an adult,
Yeah.
the weight. They're so malnourished. So what are some of the consequences of that?
Sickness, illness, suffering,
Brain damage,
disease, and early death.
cognitive disorders.
Yes. And medical problems too.
So even though we do, in fact, like learn how to crawl, or you know,
And then walk.
and it's kind of like we come with that,
And potty
you know,
train and toilet
that's
train.
part of our
And
instincts
dress
to do.
ourselves. Yeah.
If
In
we
our own
are not
diapers.
helped, we will not succeed. We can't do it on our own. We need help. We need food, we need shelter, we need protection,
Yes.
and we need someone's patience.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so it's kind of
Patience for sure.
amazing
And leniency is important for me too.
that there's so many beings in the world that are fairly functional. You know, if you look at your mind, if you look at my mind, I have no idea what y'all's minds are like. You look at my mind and see all the different, you know, roller coaster rides my mind takes me on. It's amazing, you know, that I haven't killed 732 people. You
Or
know,
bugs
it's
and
just,
insects.
you know, it's just like.
Or animals.
So when you think about
Fish, for that matter.
the fact that we do, in fact, refrain from an awful lot of harm that our minds think about doing, you know, in little ways, all the little thoughts of like, you know, boy, I hope he gets his, you know, whatever. And it's just incredible. And yet we manage to have whole societies all around the world. I mean, you know, it's all pretty phenomenal. And all the ants and the bees and all these things that, you know, work
Fish, the
together.
birds, the
That comes from
animals.
habit.
Yeah, bugs, insects, including fish, animals,
Yeah.
and birds too.
I'm sorry, this isn't really off topic, but I was just thinking for a moment. I find it so interesting that animals, and who they are. It can, they nurture and
Yeah.
take
They
care of them.
nurture their young too.
They have to show they show
Same
their
thing
their
with fish.
cubs
Same thing with
and
birds.
And they'll even adopt strangers.
they'll
Yeah.
adopt strangers. Yes. I just don't.
They have the same minds we do.
They do?
They just have a
Just not as
whole-
advanced, I guess.
What do they think? What
Not
about
smart,
cognition?
yes.
the difference between the bear and the human being
Mm.
is the physical support for the brain, for the mind.
Different
So their
brains.
brains are different.
Yes.
So that's why a human rebirth is considered so valuable, because we have a lot more ability
Not
to
the
give the
rebirth of the
physical
bear.
support of our
Mhm.
mind. So it's not, there's no difference in the actual mind itself.
Oh, okay.
It's just the the physical support for the mind in that life. So when you look at the more sophisticated the brain is, the more of those traits you see.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like the more of their mind is being revealed.
Mm.
So we wouldn't say that they're, scientists who are materialist would say that, that they're, it is their brain that's, or whatever is the whole thing that supports the mind.
What would Buddhism? Excuse me. I'm sorry. What would Buddhism say? What does the Buddha say to something that were to affect where people have heard that we only use 10% of our mind?
They'd say probably less than that.
Okay.
But they'd say it's because of our, like a Buddha mind is no longer confined to this brain system we've got.
Okay.
So it's as big as, as existence.
Oh, okay.
That's why it has no ignorance. So it's not the mind that has boundaries.
It's the body.
It's the grasping
Oh, okay.
at a self that puts us in these tight little bodies,
Yeah.
But so the different physical supports we have for the mind matters greatly in terms of what we're able to do in any particular life. So even, just, like this family of kids don't stand much of a chance to be able to work with their minds in order to develop an understanding of reality and an understanding of bodhicitta and become enlightened in this life, because their physical support for their minds has been damaged by their care.
Yeah, mine too. My mind's been damaged by my care in the hospitals too.
So
Damaged my body too.
this is why we pray for a precious human rebirth with all the good conditions. So it's not just enough to have a human rebirth. You need good conditions. And then you need to use those good conditions.
My disease.
Yep.
So would that be considered collective karma that these 13 kids were?
No.
No?
No.
It takes more than that.
No, they each had the karma to be born in that kind of family. Unlike maybe the collective karma to be born on this planet.
Right.
But no, they were all attracted to those parents at the time of conception.
Okay.
That's why mind training helps.
Yes, sure does.
And karma.
Of course, good karma.
It's not like, according to the Buddha, you can't just say it's the parent's fault. Yes, the abuse and the neglect is the parent's fault in this
In my
life.
case, it's a state's
Being
fault.
born to that
My
family
parents' fault.
is due to your own past actions. This is why we need compassion. This is why the appropriate response to it is compassion for all of them.
Yes.
Those parents are just setting up for endless hell realms,
You mean like the lower hell realms? I
lower,
heard-
the lowest hell realms.
Yeah. I learned that in the other meditation center, earlier
Yes.
this week. So,
They're like,
yeah.
I don't know.
And about the low realms,
There are
like
lots
the
of
animal
hell
and the
realms.
high realms. Buddha.
you know, until that exhausts. And then they develop these habits that are destructive, you know, and so it's likely for them to continue to practice those habits. You know, unless they, you know, but they've also created good karma in some lives. They couldn't have been born human without it. So it's a very we are really a mixture. So being able to judge each other is pointless. Totally pointless. We're a total mixed bag. So this is why when we're trying to reflect on the kindness of our caregivers, you know, it doesn't matter whether you had a particularly good one or not. The fact that you're here and you're still enjoying pretty good conditions in life compared to many other beings that aren't, you know, is in part due to the conditions of your birth.
The conditions of my body and birth is part of the problem.
You know. Challenges? Anybody?
Of course, challenges for my vision loss is challenging for me to live with because nobody's helping me learn.
Yeah,
how
and
to
that's your
manage
karma.
it.
I mean, this is what we're taught, that we have created the causes and conditions for what we're experiencing. But it doesn't mean we
Because
can't.
the states just give me bad karma. They deny me blind services. That's
Yep.
the truth. So I end up in the hospital. And that just puts me in the lowest realms
Yep.
of the world, the lowest
Yep.
hell of the world.
And this is why it's really important to really
Like the hospital's
understand
one of
that we don't have a whole lot of control over what's happening to us. We just have control over how we respond to it. That we can take, you know, because we have the good fortune to have a physical support for the mind that allows self-reflection, that allows us to, you know, really examine, investigate, you know, reason what would be a good way to respond to these conditions, practice, you know, these different, you know, like develop new habits.
Yes. Good habits,
know.
not bad habits.
Then, you know, we can turn things around
Yeah, that's
and
what
keep
I
them
wanna
going in a positive direction.
Yes.
And it's just interesting that the Buddha, through his experience, said, and what's so interesting is cherishing others is the path, you know. So all this self-work is about our ability to expand our caring for others,
I give others, just wish others could care more for
which
me.
kind of is counterintuitive, at least in our society.
Yes.
Because we're really being sold this bill of goods that says you need to, you know, be successful financially in order to buy your happiness.
At least in this country we do, not in Tibet and in other countries.
I'm sorry that I'm kind of changing the subject, but last
Less
class you said
expensive.
look for news about like good things.
Good
and
news.
Good. Most
I had a very difficult time, like
I'm sorry about that.
finding. And I know bad is not what happens all the time, but
Bad for you.
it was
It's good to Google
right.
course.
good news.
Good news.
Because it was hard.
Anybody find a story? Did you find any stories?
No, I decided. Okay, like
It's hopeless.
no, not at all. No, not at all. I remember. No.
We should start a news show that all they do
I would love
is
that.
good news.
There is a newspaper called The Happy Times.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
published
there is.
locally.
And the Book of Joy
Uh-huh.
you mentioned.
I don't know how.
Good News Channel.
Why don't they?
Not enough money.
Because it.
They don't make
people
money,
wanna
no.
The
hear
problem. The
that.
money is what gets in the way of my
Do you really think
happiness
people don't wanna
and
hear
of
it?
my suffering.
People are more interested in hearing the chaos.
About money and
You
Because
sure?
those are
helping
news.
the blind.
The other one happens. Like
And
I
just
guess
teaching
people
the
are
blind.
like nice all the time, but those are news.
Neglect and
Those are the
abandonment.
exceptions. I hope.
Neglect and abandonment.
Yes, news are
Are
the
new-
exceptions. That's what makes it news.
Mm-hmm.
It is not news that people are kind to each other. It just looks like that would be news because our news doesn't cover that. Our news covers the extraordinary, and it's often ugly. It's also occasionally, I mean, most news channels, if you've noticed, usually add some good story in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So they're finding
The
one.
human interest story at the
Yeah.
last
Christmas time.
last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, they
Right.
definitely do it at
Once
Christmas
a
time.
year. No.
No, those other, but you know, there are channels that do that every night.
Yeah.
That's, you know,
Yeah,
they
have
always
good and
include a
bad
story.
news is what I watch and hear
But-
on the news. You have good and bad.
We
info.
do have to look for it. Because we're not just looking for
Bad. We're looking for good.
the
too.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
We're just looking to discover how exceptional our hearts are. Because it really is amazing. It is amazing the stories you find. You know, like I was rereading a story about you know, the kidney chain. You know, and how, you know, how this person. Let me see if I've got it, because it's kind of fun.
Like meaning a chain of donated kidneys or something?
Yeah.
Is that the guy that put a Facebook picture on or something? Or
New kidney transplants, stuff like that? Or new kidneys donated in general? Those types of surgeries, it sounds like to me. I was about to have eye surgery and have donated eyeballs, you know, because my eyeballs don't move anymore and they feel like they're getting like rocks. Eyeballs are getting like rocks with this disease in them. It's really getting painful sometimes when I wake up in the morning. Suffering is really bad when I wake up in the morning. First open them, it hurts. Burn, sting, because I can't roll my eyeballs freely.
60 lives, 30 kidneys.
Ah.
It's about how the kidney chain, the kidney database started. You know, how somebody realized, oh, you know, this whole thing of trying to create a chain so that people who, you know, so it's not just you find someone who's a donor for you, you find someone who'll donate to anybody who needs it, and then you go into this, you know, this database so that they can connect people, you know, so eventually everybody gets a kidney from all over the place. So this one was
Like eyeballs from all over the
60 people were involved.
place.
So,
Disease.
so it's fun to just, you know, like a Michigan man agreed to donate a kidney for his former girlfriend for the sake of their 2-year-old daughter. A woman from Toronto donated it for her 5th cousin from Benson Hill, you know, after meeting him by chance in Italy. Somebody bumped into somebody at a grocery store and found out that they needed one, you know.
Like I need eyeballs that work, you know, squish and move. So ones are stuck and diseased.
So when people who would volunteer for a friend or a loved one, you know, and then they weren't a match. And then somebody would just say, well, maybe you'd be a match for somebody else, you know, and they, you know, did all this. And now there's a database of these people so that it can become easier. They just don't have enough people on the database. But I believe in karma, Miss Clark.
Yeah, I guess I do too. Once it happens to me with my eyeball surgery, whatever, so I can see again, move them freely again, so it won't be so painful with rocks in my head.
It's too long of an article to, but I mean, so it's talking about how the database got created, you know, and it was somebody who didn't need a kidney that just realized, you know, who decided to give a kidney because he heard a story about a friend of his who bumped into someone at the grocery store who found out that that person needed a kidney, and so they donated a kidney, and this guy thought, wow, that's nice, and so he just went to a hospital and said, you know, anybody need my kidney?
I wonder if I'll ever meet somebody who will donate me some eyeballs for myself, so I won't have these rocks that are hurting my sockets and hurting my sinuses.
Trouble with some transplants is
I
someone
need
has
eyeball
to die.
transplants. So
You
I
know,
can see
whereas
again,
this
so
is
I
the
can move
beauty of the
again.
kidney transplant
Yeah.
is you don't have to die to do it.
Yeah.
So
Do I have to die for eyeball transplants?
I suspect because most people need theirs.
I need mine
Yep.
donated because I can't see out them and they hurt because they're stuck. They don't roll
Okay.
freely anymore. the disease is very
I know,
painful.
it's very hard.
Yeah, very much really suffering, exactly what they're talking about, Bodhisattva.
So we need this balance between understanding that, yes, there are people doing atrocities in every moment of our day, and we can find ample evidence of that. But there are also people doing amazing things, and there are more of them. Because if you start to look at just the simple fact of the kindness of the mother or the caregiver, if you really look at how amazing it is that anybody does that, and we all have one. So there's 7 billion human beings. So that's 7 billion moms.
How many dads? No,
I guess they're probably the same number. You know, I mean, but it's just incredible. And people have more than one.
More than one.
I find that
Once
astonishing
every
all by
other they
itself.
would, because
You know.
their young children will get.
But so if you
grow
start
up.
to examine what kindness means,
Yeah,
and not keep it narrow
of course not.
to just things that are extra, but instead of the everyday, you know, because our lives depend on it. And it's just incredible. You know, how many people are doing jobs that we wouldn't want to do, but they're doing them, and our lives depend on it. Just every single thing that we need to function, the thing, all those things you think I could walk out of the house without whatever. You know, somebody
Without
made that for me.
suffering, that would be nice.
So this is the
Bodhicitta.
how we have to flip our attitude
Okay.
to where, instead of thinking in terms of what we're not getting or how things aren't going well or how much the world is suffering, blah, 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 is to try to flip it and look for the helpers. See how much
Haven't found a helper yet.
that's going on, that's amazing that it goes on, and how we depend on it. So that we can start generating this love for each other based on
Caring,
existence
compassion.
as opposed to what we want from them.
Yeah.
And that helps our heart to open.
And our mind to open too.
And we can just, it's like when we're sitting on the cushion or sitting on our kitchen chair or whatever, when we're trying to generate gratitude and generate, this desire to repay the kindnesses. That's a piece of how to develop this. The other part, though, is all the time. It's just, any time of day, you can look at the people around you and go,
Around us.
that's a mind in that body. And that body hasn't always been that body. I mean, that mind has been encased in all kinds of bodies,
Oh, yeah.
just like I have. To really loosen this sense of permanence about, that we're this way or that way, or I'm female, I'm male, I'm old, I'm young, I'm, whatever the deal is. I'm a parent, I'm, a child, I'm, a
I'm
sibling.
an adult.
I'm a boss,
Brother,
I'm an
sister.
employer, all that stuff. But you do it with everybody else too. And when you see an animal, to just realize that's a mind, that's a person.
Same thing for
In
bugs,
Buddhism,
same thing for
they're
insects,
just a
Same
person.
thing for bird and fish too.
You know, the fish is a person.
And so are bugs and insects, so are birds, and so are animals. I know
Yes.
that. Just a different kind, but it's got a mind.
And that it's changing. But that's just this moment. And that it's possible that they were your caregiver in the last life.
Oh, really?
Or they'll be your caregiver in the next one.
Okay.
So it's really about seeing the consequence of these teachings, you know, to really look around and kind of go, oh,
Teaching.
you know, I need to think about the people I interact with in a different way.
Yeah.
And just kind of look at it from that perspective. And then you have to remember why. Why would we care?
Was that a rhetorical question?
No.
Oh, I thought it was
I don't ask rhetorical questions.
And I'm thinking,
To
Possibly.
develop merit so that we may be able to experience another precious human rebirth.
Ah.
What was the first part?
To accumulate merits.
To accumulate merit. What does that mean?
That means,
Fill up the bucket.
And Tandra's
It
too.
It means what we were talking about, developing bodhicitta, essentially.
Well, and it means recognizing that none of us are different from each other. We're not extraordinary. We're also not nobody. We are all equally sentient beings
Of course.
who've been our mothers.
Oh, okay.
You
Who
know.
had mothers. Who've been mothers.
So any action of kindness or generosity or patience or whatever will produce merit because it's for a person. This includes us. If we treat ourselves well in the sense of practicing a mind of kindness and compassion and not a mind of anger and annoyance and impatience and,
People could be that
you know,
way.
all the different ways we get,
Sounds
you
like
know,
that was them.
mad at ourselves.
Yeah.
And we, you know, it's like recognizing when we don't eat well. When it, you know, when we eat foods that make us feel like terrible, or
Like
maybe even
sick.
have consequences down the road, you know,
Oh.
all that kind of stuff. When we don't exercise, when we don't try to get enough sleep, when we try to cram too much into a day, you know, that all of these things harm us.
Oh, yeah, in the long run they do.
And it's a bad habit.
In the short run. Long run they do.
You know? So we need to have, you know, like slow down, do less, take better care. Because we can't take care of each other if we're doing too much.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have bad habits, we need more space in order to practice new habits,
Good habits, I hope.
you know?
Not bad habits.
Yeah, we don't need much time to practice bad habits. We're so
Just good
habituated to them.
habits.
But it's like it's much easier to be patient if you give yourself enough time. You know, if you don't leave the house always 15 minutes late and then blame everybody else for the fact that you're late to your appointment. You know, or that it's okay that you're
Late to
speeding and
class.
driving like a mad
Late to
person and
service.
endangering people's lives
That's
because
not
you might
good.
be
That's a
late.
bad habit.
You know, that's not kind to yourself or others.
No, it's
So-
not.
But
Just
these are
because I'm
ways
blind
to,
service.
to
Yeah,
think,
that's fun.
you know, outside the envelope. You know, that we have, in every moment, we have the opportunity to be kind to ourselves or others. And if we're kind to others, we're being kind to ourselves.
so at the end, because I get confused with that word merit, because of course I want a bank where I'm accumulating, I want to take it out. So it's like good merit that hopefully will ripen.
It's not
under-
hopefully,
Good
it will.
spirit, a good karma.
Mhm,
That's what you're
Karma's
asking.
definite.
that's true.
Hope good karma, not
But
bad.
the right conditions have to be there.
Yeah.
Of course.
And what are the right conditions?
Tranquil. You know, and meditated and calm, collective.
Developing a
soft.
good heart.
Any
And
moment becomes a good
meditated.
condition.
Yeah.
If we respond well to
Yeah.
whatever is happening with an open, kind, patient heart, compassionate,
Of course, compassion.
we can't lose.
Mm-mm.
It's that simple.
So, okay, so I can say that merit is good karma. I'm accumulating good karma or merit.
Yeah,
Okay.
merit is positive.
Well, I like the
Good
concept of
merit
planting
is good
seeds, right? So
karma.
Right.
when you accumulate merit, you're planting positive karmic seeds for a
Yes.
future life,
Mhm.
Positive.
For
future
For
race.
good conditions.
For good
Of course, good conditions.
But I thought, but isn't the good conditions in this life that would allow those karmic seeds to ripen?
No.
No.
Every moment is an opportunity for our good habits to manifest.
And drop the bad habits and do the good habits instead. I know. Good karma replaces
So in
bad
accumulating merit and planting seeds for future rebirth, whatever.
It's all about habit.
It's just about habit. I don't have to, I don't have to make
Good
so much of
habits,
it.
I hope not.
Well, I mean, you can look at it as, I mean, the reason they call it accumulation of merit is because you can bank on it. You know, they will ripen as good results. Now, you don't want them to ripen as, say, beauty as a butterfly.
Mm-mm.
That's
They could
a
be
waste of attractiveness.
Oh, yeah. Just something to look at, not something to be
You
treated
know?
by.
So it matters what we want to dedicate our positive actions
Yes.
towards. You know? So it's like if you expend an awful lot of energy on your body in order to be attractive
Mm-mm.
in this life,
That's a habit.
you know, then that can ripen as like being a beautiful butterfly in another
I
life,
realize that.
you know.
Have a good mind. You know, compassionate.
So it's basically that if you have a narrow purpose, the results will be equally narrow.
Okay.
If you have an expansive purpose, like I'm
Equally
doing this
expansive?
so that I can have a succession of good rebirths again and again and again, so I can keep working on my mind, so eventually I can actually be a benefit to sentient beings, then
I like
you,
that
it will
too.
ripen to help you in that way. So your resources might not be, you know, like His Holiness. You know, His Holiness is incredibly appealing to many people, but no one would say he's attractive.
No, of course
But
not.
he is attractive.
He is.
He's reaping the benefits of patience and kindness.
So not attractive in
Because
physical
pretty
birth,
much when he walks in the
attractive
room,
kindness and
everybody
compassion.
likes it,
Yeah.
you know? So we don't want to have a narrow view
No.
of what good conditions are.
No. Want to have
You
a
know,
broad,
we don't want
wide
to
view.
label it a good condition because we associate it with some, you know, narrow preference.
Ah, okay.
You know, we just want to, you know, like often it's really good to, you know, as you practice and you develop, you know, your
Bodhicitta.
desire
Yes.
to get liberated. You know, it's sort of
Religion
like whatever
prayer.
will be of most benefit. That's your best prayer.
I learned how
You
to sing
know,
that in
may
English.
whatever happened today be of most benefit to, you know, all sentient beings. You know, whatever I have to experience, may it be of most benefit to all sentient beings. Whatever opportunities I have, may it be of most benefit to all sentient beings. You know, and not have you know, this narrow idea of what that means. You know, because at this stage of the game, we don't know. You know, our worst moments in life can produce the best results for us because we change so much, and if we change for the better, it's good news.
It sure is.
So that's why you want to be careful when you think about karma
Of course.
and its results.
It's good
You
karma,
know,
not
you
bad.
want to think about the fact that it's definite, that it's, you can't experience things that, you know, you didn't create the cause for.
Mm-hmm.
All of those, you know, basic things.
Mm-hmm.
But not start grasping at particular results.
No.
No, and you taught that last week at some point, where you,
Last week.
even with respect to what Lauren was talking about with her condition, my sister with MS, that
Oh,
to some degree we want to
multiple
actually
sclerosis.
rejoice that this is occurring in this life, because that karmic seed now is expired, that it's ripe.
Right.
And that even bad karmic seeds that ripen, there's a cause and condition. A cause and condition has to
Right.
exist for that seed to ripen.
Yep.
So that's why I was using that analogy of,
Okay.
of merit,
Mhm.
generating merit, planting positive karmic seeds.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. And we don't want to waste them when that happens.
Right.
You know. And we also don't want them to ripen in useless ways.
Mm.
You know, like
Or
to be
bad karma was a
appealing
negative.
to humans
Okay.
because you're a butterfly.
You
You know, it's like-
just
But we don't
Physically
have,
attractive,
do we
but
have,
not
we don't have
spiritually
the
helpful.
ability to decide when they ripen other than our behavior and our actions that we take every day.
Yeah.
If we're
Right.
creating a cause.
creating habits.
Right.
Habits.
Because what that means is, at the time of death, if you've created the habit of being sort of equanimous,
What's a quantumness?
I'm not equanimous about equanimous.
Quantumness.
You know, at the time of death, if you created that habit of whatever happens, you can handle, you know, or you will try to, you know, respond according to the way you want to, the kind of person you want to be. You know, if you've developed that habit, then at the moment of death, you're likely not to be raging against somebody and being a condition for a negative karmic seed to ripen.
Of course not. Just a
You know,
positive.
that part is where we have some control.
Okay.
If we use these good conditions well in this life, you know,
Responsibly.
then, you know, we're laying the groundwork to have a good death.
Instead of a
Not,
bad.
and that doesn't mean an easy death, or you know, it just means that it's a condition for a positive seed to ripen because of the habit of our mind, so that we have another good rebirth with good conditions. And so getting in the habit of really having gratitude for meeting the teachings so that we can meet them again, so that are some of those, you know, that we make it,
Bodhicitta's teaching.
you know, that we're setting the intention of having the long-term goal. You know. But the small scope, I mean, where we start generally is that people try, you know, they work hard to have a good life. And then, you know, and if they believe in rebirth, and they also work hard to hopefully have good conditions in the next life. You know, I mean, this is where we start. But how we, you know, when we're refining our definition of those things, of what is a good life. You know. So I'll send y'all the homework, which just means, you know, if you're reading any of this.
I can only do it on disc, on audio. I can't do it reading because my vision.
We can talk to your mom about the Discovering Buddhism Online,
Yeah.
because that's all audio.
Because only my dad knows how to burn discs. My mom does, and I don't either.
I know, but the only avenue I have is to talk to your mom, who will talk to your dad.
Okay.
So,
My dad's in another state, he's in Massachusetts. My mom's the only one down here with me.
well, actually, you can play them on your computer when that starts working.
It's working, but I don't know how to
I know.
get it. It's only to program for Braille software, so that's the problem. It does have some type of disc thing.
Do you
in
know
it, but I don't
Braille?
have- I need to learn Braille. Is the truth.
It's good to start now.
You know, because nobody gave me the software. I need to learn Braille. Nobody cares about teaching it to me. It's not in this country. Maybe in Tibet,
No, in Tibet they wouldn't care less. So,
because they wouldn't be so expensive typing money like they are in this country.
yeah, they just don't have any.
I mean, it's better when it's not so
Laura.
much money and when it's just teaching is what I
Yeah, all right.
not money.
All right. Need you to settle a little.
I know.
And then I have some meditations thrown in there. But mainly what I want you to do, and I've got this instruction in the email, you know, is just to start looking at people and thinking, oh, that's a mind in that body. You know, and that mind is just like mine. And that mind just wants happiness and doesn't want to suffer. And that mind has been my friend, my partner, my mother, my father, my sibling, you know, my enemy, again and again and again. You know, and yep.
I was just thinking, I had this experience a couple times this week. What also really helped me really feel it was recognizing heart and mind, that person has a mind and heart.
Well, it's the same word
thing,
in
right?
Buddhism.
I understand, but in English, but still, for me, it was recognizing that the heart.
Yeah, I mean, it may be
mind.
better for you to just use the word heart,
Yeah.
because I think it's really important to start understanding that wisdom and love are compatible. In fact, they arise in the same mind. So,
I know wisdom means understanding.
wisdom and anger cannot arise
No,
in
they
the same
can't.
mind.
They can't. Yeah, it's bad for one set of
They're
good.
both awarenesses,
Yes, I know that.
and they're both positive awarenesses. That's why compassion,
How about
or
positive
love,
and
and
negative?
wisdom can be in the same mind.
Yes, and understanding's part of wisdom.
Because incompatible states of mind can't coexist.
Mm.
They can alternate really, really rapidly.
Mm, whoa.
All your favorite love-hate relationships can prove that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer they be civilized, personally,
So-
the hate ones.
So you'll have some, but it's just this idea of just occasionally remembering during the day, like, I don't know what you can use to remember, set your, your reminder thing on your phone to just
Can't
ding
even
every now
remember
and then, and then that's your reminder
Oh, I can't
to
see.
think about
Yes,
how all the people you're interacting with, all the animals and insects and everything else
And
that you
fish and
meet
birds?
are just
Birds.
minds and a body.
Okay, yeah.
And that it's changeable. This isn't the body they've always had. They've had endless bodies,
Yes, they did.
So the good news about the mind existing is that samsara can end,
That would be
The mind
good.
won't
And
end.
suffering.
but our being trapped by our negative states of mind and our ignorance ends if we do the work. That's the caveat. So this is, so what Ralph has been talking about is sort of the reason why at the end we take whatever motivation we had and then think and rejoice in whatever positive effort we've made in this hour and a half, because it accumulates merit. So and then we want to dedicate it to be a benefit to all suffering sentient beings until they're all out of samsara, because it will not exhaust till then. So it won't be one of these things that I just want to make a lot of money in this life so that my children will be taken care of. It's
Even as
the
adults?
big view. It's so that all children, which means every single sentient being,
Oh, okay.
is
Adult
free
or
of suffering.
child. Okay.
So that's kind of the idea behind these big expansive dedications. Okay? We can read Shanti Davis on whatever it is, 246.
246.
246.
English or Tibetan? Oh. Chant in Tibetan, read it in English. I would be a great chant master. I
So
don't
think about that you made the effort to, you had a motivation to come here tonight, you followed through on it, you showed up, you participated, in whatever way. You didn't snore, you didn't fall asleep, you stuck with it. And that's all good news. Looking at how you might be able to change your way of viewing other sentient beings is a positive action. And so you're doing this in order to to develop your capacity to to be able to include all sentient beings in your heart until there's no suffering sentient beings left.
suffering human beings.
And so this prayer just sort of reminds us of all the different ways we suffer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. The diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be free. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thanks very much.